The Chosen Season 6 is officially coming, and the countdown has already begun. Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, made the announcement at ChosenCon, and the moment he said those words, the entire fanbase felt it. The first 6 episodes of Season 6 will arrive in fall 2026, and then Episode 7, the season finale, will be released in spring 2027 in theaters all around the world. Just reading that sentence makes my heart beat faster, because that finale, that 7th episode, is not just any episode. It is the moment that the entire series has been building towards since the very first episode. Every miracle, every conversation, every quiet moment between Jesus and his disciples, all of it has been leading here. And honestly, knowing that we will watch it on a big screen, in a theater, surrounded by other people who have been on this same journey, I think that is exactly how it should be. Some moments are too big for a phone screen or a laptop. Some moments deserve to be felt in a room full of people, and the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is absolutely one of those moments. But before we get into everything that is going to happen in Season 6, I want to take a moment to talk about where we are emotionally as an audience. Because I think a lot of us have been quietly dreading this season, even while we were desperately waiting for it. We love these characters, we love Jonathan Rumi as Jesus. We love the disciples, we love Mary, and watching the people we love suffer is never easy, even when we know the story, even when we know how it ends. There is something about the way The Chosen tells stories that makes everything feel real and personal and deeply human, and that is exactly what makes Season 6 feel so heavy. We are not going to be watching a historical event from a distance. We are going to be inside it, feeling every single moment alongside the people who lived it. So what exactly is going to happen in Season 6? Let me walk you through everything, starting from the very beginning of where Season 5 left off and moving all the way through to that final earth-shaking moment. And I want you to understand, this is not just a plot summary. This is the story of the most important days in the history of the world, told through the lens of a show that has spent 5 seasons making sure we care deeply about every single person involved. Season 6 opens exactly where Season 5 ended. Jesus has been arrested. And from that very first scene, the tone of the entire season is set. Everything that felt warm and hopeful in the earlier seasons is now replaced with something much darker, much heavier, and much more difficult to watch. The arrest of Jesus is not just a plot point. It is the moment when everything changes. And Season 6 is going to make sure we feel that change in our bones. What makes this season so extraordinarily powerful is not just the events themselves, because most of us already know what happens. We know the story. We have heard it, read it, seen it portrayed in different ways throughout our lives. But The Chosen has spent 5 full seasons doing something that no other portrayal has ever done quite like this. It has made us know these people. It has made us sit with them, laugh with them, struggle with them, and believe in them. And now when everything falls apart, when the darkest chapter begins, we are not watching strangers. We are watching our people. That is the genius of what Dallas Jenkins and his team have built. And that is exactly why Season 6 is going to hit us in a way that nothing else ever has. Because the pain will not just belong to Jesus and his disciples, it will belong to us too. Every single one of us who has been on this journey from the beginning. Season 6 begins with Jesus being brought before Annas, the former high priest, for questioning. And this interrogation scene is going to be one of the most powerful moments in the entire season. Because what we are going to witness is not a man who is afraid. We are going to witness a man who is completely at peace, even in the middle of chaos and hatred and injustice. When Annas questions Jesus about his followers and his teachings, Jesus responds with complete calm and absolute clarity. He says, "I have taught openly. Why are you questioning me as if I were hiding?" These words are simple, but the weight behind them is enormous, because Jesus is not defending himself out of fear. He is not panicking. He is standing in his truth, quietly and powerfully, even knowing exactly what is coming next. And I want to take a moment here to talk about Jonathan Rumi, because this season is going to ask more of him than any previous season ever has. Jonathan has been absolutely extraordinary throughout this entire series. The way he carries the character of Jesus, the gentleness, the strength, the warmth, the authority, it never feels like a performance. It always feels completely real. And now in Season 6, he is going to have to carry something almost unbearable. He is going to have to portray a man going through arrest, interrogation, mockery, physical suffering, and ultimately death, all while maintaining that inner peace that defines who Jesus is. I genuinely do not know how he does it, but I know that when I watch it, I am going to feel every single moment deeply. And I believe Jonathan is going to deliver something that stays with audiences for a very long time. Back to the interrogation. When Jesus gives this calm and honest response to Annas, the guards around him are going to react with anger. one of them will strike Jesus. And this moment, as brief as it might be, is going to be deeply painful to watch. Because by this point in the series, we have spent 5 seasons watching Jesus show nothing but kindness, healing, and love. And now he is being struck. While standing in complete dignity and silence, the apostles who are nearby will want to defend him. They will want to stand up and stop what is happening. But Jesus will wait quietly, just as he always does, because this is the path, and he has already accepted it. What makes these early scenes of Season 6 so incredibly moving is not just the injustice of what is happening, it is the contrast. We have watched Jesus calm storms, restore sight to the blind, bring Lazarus back from the dead. We have watched crowds follow him in awe and love. And now we are watching the same man being treated like a criminal. The same hands that healed people are now bound. The same voice that spoke words of life is now being silenced by people who are afraid of it. That contrast alone is going to make these early scenes almost unbearable to sit through. And I think that is exactly the point. The Chosen has always understood that the most powerful storytelling is not about action or spectacle. It is about making you feel the full weight of what is real. And Season 6 is going to do that more than any season before it. After his time before Annas, Jesus is brought before Caiaphas and the full Sanhedrin, and here things escalate dramatically. The religious leaders are desperate to find a reason to have Jesus executed, so they search all across the city for witnesses who can testify against him. But when those witnesses come forward, their testimonies do not match. Their stories fall apart. The council cannot agree. And in that moment of chaos, Caiaphas steps forward and asks Jesus the one question that changes everything. Are you the Messiah? And Jesus answers, calmly, clearly, completely. He says, you have said so. From now on, you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven. And with those words, the decision is made. The moment Jesus speaks those words before Caiaphas, the entire room shifts. There is no longer any debate. No longer any chaos among the witnesses, no longer any pretense of a fair trial. Caiaphas tears his robe, a dramatic act that signals outrage and religious offense, and declares that Jesus has committed blasphemy. The council agrees, and with that agreement, the road to crucifixion is no longer just a possibility. It is certain, sealed, and the weight of that certainty is going to fall on every single character in Season 6 in a completely different way, because the arrest of Jesus does not just affect Jesus. It shatters the world of everyone around him, and no one will feel that shattering more deeply than Judas. Throughout the earlier seasons of The Chosen, Judas has been one of the most complex and fascinating characters in the entire show. We have watched him struggle. We have watched him doubt. We have watched him try to reconcile his expectations of who the Messiah should be with the reality of who Jesus actually is. And when he made his terrible decision, I think many of us in the audience felt something complicated. Not just anger, but grief. Because the show had made us understand Judas in a way that most portrayals never bother to. And now in Season 6, we are going to see the full consequence of his choice. When Judas realizes that things have gone this far, that Jesus is not going to escape, that the religious leaders are moving toward execution, something inside him breaks completely. He takes the 30 pieces of silver he received for his betrayal and throws them back into the temple. This moment is not triumphant. It is not a moment of redemption. It is a moment of absolute devastation. Because by then, it is already too late. The money means nothing. The gesture means nothing. The damage has already been done. And watching Judas face that reality is going to be one of the most emotionally devastating moments in the entire season. Because the show has spent so much time building his character that his collapse will feel personal to us as viewers, not just tragic personal. Now, for Jesus to actually be executed, the approval of Rome is required. And this is where Pontius Pilate enters the story. Pilate is a fascinating figure in this narrative, because he represents something very specific, a man who knows the truth, but lacks the courage to stand by it. From the very first moment he sees Jesus standing before him, Pilate senses that something is different about this man. There is a quality to Jesus that unsettles Pilate deeply. Not because Jesus is threatening or aggressive, but because Jesus is completely at peace. And in a world where everyone around Pilate is motivated by power and fear and political survival, a man who is genuinely at peace with his fate is something Pilate has simply never encountered before. Pilate asks Jesus directly, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus responds with those now famous words, "You say that I am." This answer does not give Pilate anything to work with politically. It does not confirm or deny in a way that allows Pilate to take easy action. And in that silence, in that calm, Pilate finds himself deeply troubled. He does not want to condemn this man. Everything inside him is telling him that Jesus is innocent. But the pressure from the crowd, from the religious leaders, from the entire political situation around him is immense. And Pilate, for all his power as a Roman governor, finds himself trapped between what he knows is right and what is politically survivable. That tension is going to make his scenes in Season 6 absolutely gripping to watch. Feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him and desperately looking for a way out, Pilate tries to shift the responsibility by sending Jesus to Herod Antipas. And this part of the story introduces one of the most painfully ironic moments in the entire season, because Herod has actually wanted to meet Jesus for a long time. Not out of sincere faith, not out of genuine spiritual seeking, but out of curiosity and entertainment. Herod wants to see a miracle. He wants Jesus to perform something spectacular, something that will impress him, something that will satisfy his hunger for the unusual and the extraordinary. And what Herod is about to discover is that Jesus will not perform for anyone. Jesus had already made a private decision long before this moment. He would not use his power for spectacle. He would not perform miracles to satisfy the demands of those who only wanted to be entertained. And standing before Herod, in one of the most quietly powerful moments of the entire season, Jesus says absolutely nothing. He does not argue. He does not defend himself. He does not try to win Herod over. He simply stands in silence. And that silence is deafening, because it is not the silence of a man who has nothing to say. It is the silence of a man who knows that some audiences are simply not worth addressing. And Herod, who expected to be dazzled and amused, instead finds himself standing in front of someone whose dignity and quiet authority make him feel small. Herod's response to this silence is cruel and petty. Unable to get what he wanted from Jesus, he decides to mock him instead. He dresses Jesus in a royal robe as a joke, a humiliation, a way of saying, "You think you are a king, look at you now." And then he sends Jesus back to Pilate. This moment is going to be deeply painful to watch. Not because it is the most physically violent scene in the season, but because of what it represents. Jesus, who truly is a king in the deepest and most real sense, is being mocked with the very symbols of kingship. And he endures it without a single word of protest. The dignity in that silence is going to absolutely wreck us as an audience. When Jesus is brought back before Pilate for the final time, the moment of decision has arrived, and there is no more delaying it. Pilate makes one final attempt to save Jesus by using the Passover tradition, a custom where the Roman governor releases one prisoner chosen by the crowd. Pilate gives the people a choice between Jesus and Barabbas, a well-known criminal, and in this moment Pilate clearly believes that the crowd will choose to release Jesus. Surely he thinks they will not choose a murderer over this man. But the crowd, stirred up and manipulated by the religious leaders, calls out for Barabbas, and with that the last door closes. The last possible escape disappears, and Pilate stands before the crowd knowing that what is about to happen is deeply wrong, and that he is about to allow it anyway. In front of everyone, Pilate takes water and washes his hands. He says, "I am innocent of this man's blood." It is one of the most famous gestures in all of history, and yet it changes absolutely nothing, because washing his hands does not wash away the decision. It does not remove the responsibility. It is simply a public declaration of cowardice, dressed up as a ritual of innocence. And after that gesture, Pilate gives the order. Jesus will be scourged. He will be mocked. He will be crowned with thorns, and he will be crucified. These scenes are going to be incredibly hard to watch, and I believe they should be, because what happened to Jesus was not clean or distant or symbolic. It was brutal and real and deeply unjust. And The Chosen, with all the care and love it has always brought to this story, is going to make sure we feel every single moment of it,